but they've had their share of difficulties, and so they're sensitive to these kind of things, and so it is definitely uh, something that will trigger a lot of resentment. Um, they're not the only ones that are suffering, but they're definitely one group that is very sensitive to the 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 how the country's economy is falling apart. And why is it falling apart? It's planned that way. It's planned from several different directions. One is the way the world sets up their economic system. It's designed to collapse. I mean, we've got fractional banking. We've got the U.S. government having to go to the Fed to borrow every dollar that it uses and get in debt for every dollar that it uses. Um, we've got a lot of we've got built-in inflationary mechanisms. And then, of course, on top of that, the agenda of the elite, the Illuminati's agenda, is for an economic collapse. So not only do we have natural built-in mechanisms for it happen, but they want it to happen. And so you see the Fed talking about capital controls. That's a warning sign, a red flag that we've got something really serious on the horizon here. And indeed we have. I've been warning people that these next few months are going to be a time of significant danger. I don't want to put any date on anything, but Americans need to realize that United States has gotten rid of their gold. I mean, they said that their FT 900 report was saying that our government exported 217 tons of gold last year. Where that came from, nobody knows. The figures that they're giving us are totally fictitious. The U.S. doesn't have gold. When the Germans wanted their gold that we were supposed to be safekeeping for them, we couldn't give it to them. And the little bit that we did send was not their gold, none of it was gold that they had deposited with us. It was something else that was not even of the same purity. So I don't know if that's going to catch up with our government, that our government's been lying, because our dollars depend on the full faith and credit of the U.S. government, which, I don't know why anyone would have faith in this government. One of the things that Obama shamelessly did was he contributed to the economic power leaving the United States, and that was the Europeans proposed this G20 meetings, which, the United States still has, relative to the rest of the world, quite a bit of economic power, so to speak. But when you go to these G20 meetings, the Europeans get 5 votes, we get 1 vote. And then the advisor, the head of the G20 meetings, is the IMF head. Well, the Europeans decide who's head of the IMF, which is Christine Lagarde from France, she's an Illuminati member, by the way. And these controllers in these European Illuminati who are manipulating things, they get to decide who's head of the IMF. And so that's just one example. There's other examples, the International Organization of Securities Commissions, they regulate our markets, not only the world's markets, but the U.S. markets. BIS in Basel, Switzerland, they govern banking regulators. So Americans think that we're sovereign, but all of these economic controls are with the Europeans. They're outside of the United States. And you might see here, I have a chart showing that red diagram there is showing that this is Belgium's, how much Belgium just last year bought in U.S. Treasury notes. That's 412 billion. Well, Belgium, what's Belgium got? Well, it's got these Illuminati kingpins that are working through front companies in Belgium. That's showing that these European Illuminati kingpins are buying U.S. Treasury debt. And why would they do that? Because that gives them a say in U.S. policy. So they're in a situation where they can tell Obama what to do. They can tell the Fed what to do because they've got us. And meanwhile, Russia and China, the BRICS countries, are waging economic war against us. A lot of people can recognize a shooting war, if one country invades another, but there isn't a lot of information or awareness how countries can attack you economically. And China and Russia have been doing that. And they're working on dethroning the United States as the world's reserve currency. They're halfway towards that. And so one of the things that I've been warning Americans about is one of the big signs that things are going to totally go south, collapse on America, is when America gets dethroned as the world's reserve currency. It may end up not just one currency replacing us, but several. But at any rate, these countries are working as hard as they can to do that. And that means that the United States will no longer be able to shamelessly inflate their currency and just print up every month billions of dollars. But because if we do that, if we continue to do that like we're doing right now, we're going to get into inflation or hyperinflation. So we're going to be accountable for our wild economic policies, which so far in the world, when we inflate our currency, it's like a tax on the whole world, because there's more U.S. dollars outside of the United States than there are in the United States. So when we inflate our currency, the rest of the world has to pay the price for our wild fiscal spending. Putin said that the Eurasian model, this is the model that they're trying to replace the previous way the world worked. He said it's going to be more successful model for the new world. So they've got an entire economic system that they have negotiated and they're working to bring in. And so we are in an economic war. We've got so many things working against us. The BRIC countries, the Illuminati, it's like, and then our own bad fiscal policies, of just overspending.
Right. What does it mean when the government is basically bankrupting all of its citizens while simultaneously collapsing the border? What is the purpose of that?
Yeah, they're destroying our culture, and they're making it hard for us to work together. It's a divide and conquer thing. That's part of what Ferguson's about. That's part of bringing in all of these foreigners through Mexico. Is we've got people that are not committed to this country. We've got all of this tension. I spent a lot of time visiting with Mexicans. I'm not talking about Mexican Americans. I'm talking about Mexicans that have come over from Mexico, what their attitudes are, why they've come. And, one representative of the group, I could say, this one Mexican told me, he said, I came to America to make money, and I'm going to make it whether I have to have a job or steal it. But one way or the other, I'm going to go back to Mexico with money. There's no concept there of constitutional values or what America means to us. It's just a means to an end. If he has to steal a car and take it back to Mexico and sell it or whatever, and he wasn't the only one that's spoken to me like that. And so we're seeing this divide and conquer, the breakdown of our culture, the breakdown of the structures in the United States that would allow us to deal with problems.
Well, what are some triggers that we should be paying attention to? Just for instance, I was just watching on CNN, and they were talking about how there were provocateurs, or there's rumors of provocateurs coming into Ferguson, and it's almost like with the Family Guy episode where they sort of put it out there what's going on, but they present it in a way that they're just trying to get to the bottom of it when they're the ones that are sending in the provocateurs. But are there some other triggers or things that we should really be watching for to just help us, not fall victim to the psyop?
One of the things that was significant was your one reporter there, when he got in there, he noticed that the police were allowing people to loot and destroy, arson. They were not stopping the real criminals. And in the past, we've repeatedly seen this kind of behavior where the police repeatedly bent over backwards to help the criminal elements in the protest. And then all of a sudden you get this huge overreaction where they surround the peaceful protesters, and then they move in, and you'll have women with children that will be beaten down. Once they beat people down, they'll grab them by the hair, they'll take pepper spray and spray each eye at close quarters. So, and some of these people are almost killed by the brutal tactics. In fact, actually, in some of these protests, there are people that are killed. And so then you just get this huge overreaction. Well, what's that do? It solidifies hate in the people that have been brutalized. So you create this civil war type scenario or mentality. Mm-hmm. And so instead of trying to resolve the problem, they're exacerbating it. That's a big clue. That's a big clue that this is a PSYOP operation that they want to happen, because instead of dealing with it, I know that they're giving a lot of verbiage, they're talking real sweet, we want calmness and everything. But if, actions speak louder than words. Look at their actions. What are they actually doing? They're bringing in the National Guard. Mm-hmm. The National Guard should not move in as police. Historically, there have been numerous times where National Guard, back in Ludlow, Colorado, back in the early part of the 20th century, they brought in the National Guard on trains with machine guns. And there was a miner strike because they were upset at how the mining company was cheating them out of their pay. The store was cheating them and everything. They had gone on strike. They actually machine gunned down women and children and strikers. That's the National Guard has a, Kent State's another example of where you bring in the National Guard as police, and you can expect that there's going to be an excessive use of force, because these men have not been trained to be police. Mm-hmm. This happens typically worldwide. And so when you see them doing these kind of things, even though their mouths are saying one thing, their actions speak louder than their words.
Right, and well, this whole situation in Ferguson has brought to the collective consciousness of America that, wow, we are living in a police state. So it almost seems like the mainstream media kind of rolled in there to help control this narrative, where people were really beginning to say, well, wait a minute, why are we arming our local police stations with military-grade weapons? And now we kind of see the media really showing all the looting and the rioting and showing all the danger to sort of justify the need for all of this heavy equipment in our local police departments. Now they're kind of calling for, a CNN anchor today said, well, why not use water cannons? And, just kind of making this okay somehow, the new norm.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been a campaign going on for a couple decades to normalize the militarization of our police. And it's pretty amazing. We had a bank robbery here. Oh, it was in 97. and it occurred across the river